Hi, this video is part of my complete Docker and Kubernetes course. The link is in the description of the video, so make sure to give a thumbs up, and if you don't want to miss any updates, subscribe to the channel. That being said, let's get started. Hello and welcome back. Let's continue with the development of our Nodes Backend API as well as our Notebooks Backend API. Let's bring all our services up here with Docker Compose up. Let's use the build flag as well as the watch flag. And after we get all the logs here listed on the screen, we can confirm that both the services, the notebooks and the nodes are both up and running. And if we come back to Postman, we can just send a GET request to our reverse proxy here to the port 8080 in our localhost to both the nodes and the notebooks endpoints. We can then confirm that both of them are working. Let's then change to the IDE and let's start adding our files here. We're going to keep it simple. We're just going to create a models.js file and a routes.js file. Alright, so here, if we were working in a project that had more than one functionality here inside of this notebooks backend, then by all means I would group this not based on a routes folder or on a models folder, but rather on a feature-based level. Once again, I will keep the structure of the project and of the files as simple as possible. In any real-world project, you would probably come across more complex setups. But since our focus here is on exploring Docker and its capabilities, I will keep the application code as simple as possible. Alright, jumping into the models file, I'm going to import Mongoose. So let's say const mongoose is equal to require mongoose. And then we will create a schema here. So const schema is equal to mongoose.schema. We can also directly require, I believe, schema here at the top, but I'm just going to keep the two lines here. Then we're going to create a new schema for our notebooks. We're just going to say notebook schema like so is equal to new schema. And this schema here will have a series of objects. The name, or actually a series of key value pairs here, series of entries. The name entry will define the name property of our notebook. And the type here will be a string, and this will be a required property. So we're going to mark required to true. The second property I would like to add to our document or to our notebook schema is a description. So people should also be able to set a description here. The description will be of type string. However, it will not be required. So say required false, and it will have a default value of null in case it is not provided. Let's save this here. We can send this object to a new line here because I would also like to pass another configuration. So let's just add this to a new line. And then we're going to add a colon here. And then we will say timestamps is equal to true. What the timestamps equals to true here will do is it will add both the created at and updated at timestamps automatically to our document. This means that we don't need to add it manually. Mongoose will take care of this behind the scenes. We can then create a model. So I'm going to say const notebook is equal to, let me scroll down a little bit here, mongoose.model. And then we're going to name the model here notebook. And the schema is going to be the notebook schema like so. The last step is just for us to export this. So module.exports is equal to notebook like so. Once we have the modules created, we can start working on our routes. For this, we're going to use the concept of a router. So we're going to say express is equal to require express. And then here on the top, we will just say const notebook router is equal to express.router. Let's then immediately define a get route here. So I'm going to say notebook router.get / and then we will just return this. So let me just fix this here / like so. Then we're going to have the request and the response coming in here as objects. And then we'll simply say here response.send, or we can say JSON. And then let's just say a message here. Hello from notebooks. This is exactly the same message we are sending from our server.js. So let's now export this. Module.export is equal to notebook router like so. And let's then here in our server import or require this notebook router. I'm going to say notebook router is equal to require ./routes like so. And then we're going to use the notebook router here. Simply say app.use. And then we will say /API/notebooks. And then we're just going to pass the router here, notebook router. We can already add in our server.js the body parser here. So body parser is equal to require body-parser. And then we will say here before we use the router so that we actually parse the body before we start handling any requests here. Just gonna say app.use body parser.json like so. Great. Let's save our file here. Let's come back to the terminal and let's confirm that the notebooks got correctly restarted. We can then also come back to our Postman page here and make sure that the request is still being served. And as you can see here, the exclamation mark disappeared because I did not include that in the routes file. Great, this is pretty much everything that we need to do to set up and wire everything together here. So now we have a routes file that we can extend with all the different routes to handle notebooks. We will also leverage the notebook model that we have created here, and we will use it inside of the routes. Let's then take a short break and come back in the next lecture to implement the different routes.